No, you did not read that wrong. I am back to making TBR videos. I know I have stopped them since I got into my depressive episode that then triggered my burnout. So yes, or rather I think my burnout triggered my depressive episodes. Either way, I have been burnt out from booktube, from making any form of bookish content, from even reading books, and I do know that that is also kind of tied to the stress I'm feeling with my current job. It's just things have been escalating for the last 2.5 years, and that has been reflecting itself in my hobbies and the things that bring me joy, and I refuse for that to stand. So my goal and hope is to read a small amount of books every month, and I will be happy and delighted. And so therefore, as I'm certain you've guessed from the video, I'm going to be using tarot cards to make those choices. Why tarot? Because I am learning to read tarot, and from the people I'm learning from, they did mention that practice would help me a great deal in learning how to trust my intuition and interpret the cards and see what the cards have to say, right? So that is what I am really eager and hopeful for about. So I'm going to just do a 3-card pull and see how I interpret it. Like, if you're somebody that reads tarot, understands tarot, you might be like, no, yeah, that interpretation makes absolutely zero sense. And you'll be right. Just remember, I am learning, right? And I am hoping that this would also be a way of me documenting my learning process. So I'm going to be using these cards. Yes, these are the Fairy Loot Tarot deck, right? I collected this over a space of like 2.5 years, I think, because this contains all the cards, like the entire suit, both the major and the minor arcana, and just, yeah, I am so excited. But yeah, so come along on this journey with me. It is going to be hard because, like, these cards are big, and this is why I actually love that I am practicing with this, because the tarot cards I use outside of booktube is the Modern Witch deck, tarot deck that I was graciously gifted. Thank you. And that is way smaller than this, but I've been having trouble shuffling the cards because I've been like, yo, those cards are big, but like learning how to shuffle the Fairy Loot cards would be an absolute, like, would be just was what I'm looking for. I don't know. Learning to shuffle the Fairy Loot cards would be a lesson in learning how to easily shuffle the much smaller decks, because this deck is big, as you all can see. It is hard. Ugh. Okay, so now I'm just looking, like, right, November is just before Christmas. It will be interesting to see exactly what themes or what kind of stories I should gravitate towards. Okay, one card has dropped, so I'm just leave it there. I'm not looking at what the card is. Sorry, I'm not looking at what the card is. So I'm just, did I just say I'm not looking at what the card? I'm not looking at what the card, like what card dropped just yet, because it's a 3-card pull, right? So the whole expectation is shuffle, 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 shuffle until you get to something good, right? So for those that missed my last video, right, this would be a great time to talk about the fact that the world is in very terrible times. The ongoing ethnic cleansing and genocide of the Palestinian people is something that, if you're anywhere on social media, you're seeing, because like traditional media is not covering the devastation, and they are all just, you know, attempting to push the propaganda of the settler colony state that is Israel, right? So, but I don't know if you're seeing what's happening with Gaza and even with the West Bank as well. Yesterday, they shut off all communications, cellular communications within Gaza. So, like, they shut down all the cell towers, everything. So, like, last night was terrible because we couldn't, all we could get were, like, snippets of information from the radio stations that, like, you know, people were listening to and sharing with us on Twitter. I refuse to call that platform X. Fuck Elon Musk. So it was just like, it was what we could hear and what people are translating what they could hear on the radio. People in Egypt were talking about how they could feel the reverberations of the bombs. So the death toll is just, it's horrifying. It's horrifying. And like I mentioned in that last video, why do you read, right? Why do we read? This is a TBR video, so us reading is expected. So why do we read? Because like I mentioned in that video, I read for entertainment, I read for pleasure, I read for joy. I also read to learn and educate myself and see the world beyond where it is that I live, because I live in Lagos, Nigeria, right? And there's so much else out there in the world. Everything I know about the world right now is either through movies or books. But I was reading books even before all of that. So yes, I did start reading books before I started actively like watching TV. Educate yourself, please. Like, the world is just as it is, and that is the third card. Right, that is the third card. I've gotten all three cards out, so let's see. Oof. Okay. Yo. First card that dropped. I don't know if you can see this, but the first card that dropped was the Tower. Right, and here is the thing. Okay, so let me just hold it up. Right, I got the Tower. I don't know if you can see that. That's the Eight of Swords. And I got the Six of Wands. Right? So 2 minor cards, 1 major card. And if basically I go based off of how it is that they appeared to me, this is exactly how the cards came out. We had the Lover, and that was followed by the Eight of Swords, and then we had the Six of Wands, right? So my quick understanding of it based off of what it is that I've been learning, but also remember, I'm trying to trust my intuition and also speak to the cards, which means that I might just go with like the boring interpretation if these are characters that I have no knowledge of and cannot identify. But if they are characters that I actually know, it might actually help with interpreting the cards. Starting with this is Matthias, right? And I think that the significance of having Matthias as the Tower card is that when I see him and when I think of him and when I also consider what the Tower card means, it's just an overhauling of a system. Especially the role that Matthias plays in the breaking down, in the destruction of a system of hate, is that he is the person who used to be a part of that system. He is somebody that had been programmed and manipulated, like, to believe in the system, to trust in the system, and then he makes the choice to be better than it. And of course, he does suffer for that, but the book, the Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, particularly Crooked Kingdom, never does interpret what happens to him as a tragedy. It's a tragedy because, yes, he does end up suffering from it. I'm trying to avoid not saying too much because I don't know if you all have read it, and I don't want to do any spoilers, I guess. I don't know. But like, it is a tragedy, but we are given a hint of the system will change because people like Matthias are like, nah, I have to be the last end of this particular chain. You're not going to avenge me, because avenging me is just going to keep the cycle moving over and over again. So Matthias as a Tower, representing somebody who believes that the system needs to change, and they are willing to be the person that changes that system, that takes concrete steps towards asking for better, towards insisting that this environment, this situation, this programming that they had been given, that is all they've known all their life, is not the truth. It's not the truth, and they're going to push for more, and they're going to push for better, and it's of course going to make sure that everything comes crumbling down, right? So that is my interpretation of this card. And so therefore, the book I will be picking for this is going to be a book that speaks to that, a book that has a character determined to change the state of things. Usually a character that has been part of some sort of civilization that is or a people who are filled with so much hatred, and who are so determined to destroy anybody that they feel is other, right? And this person waking up from that programming and deciding that they are going to change things, they are going to play their role in making that system crumble. So, considering the present state of the world, considering the present state of the world, the cards do not lie. So my November read pick for the Tower is going to be Iron Widow by Zira Zhenjiao. For those that, and I'm certain because this book has been on like booktube for like forever, everybody knows what the premise of it is, but just in case you don't, it's set in a mecha society inspired by the life of China's greatest female emperor, Wu Zetian, right? And this is inspired by Wu Zetian because the lead character in this, Zetian, her sister is killed. Like I said, it's a mecha society inspired by Pacific Rim. You need 2 riders to power the mechs, the machines, right? And her sister is killed because of the kind of society that they live in. And Zetian makes it, it becomes her mission to bring justice, like to get vengeance on her sister's behalf, but also to cripple the entire society as it exists. She's big on this system being dismantled in order to save the girls who are being sacrificed on the altar of patriarchy or the patriarchal system that exists. And like, tell me this does not speak the Tower. Like, next card is 8 of Swords, or the next card that came out was 8 of Swords. And I find it interesting that I had the Tower and then I had 8 of Swords and I had 6 of Wands. And that is because, like, usually when I think of swords, you know, because I think of swords and I think of a lot of movement, right? Because swords do imply movement, right? That is it, like, you know, so your cups are the depth of emotion, swords, movement because of air, movement of thought, and the conflict that can arise from that. And of course, the wands are fire starters, right? Wands represent the element of fire. And so when I have a deck or when I do a pull that does have both swords and wands in it, I'm like, this is just speaking to conflict. This is speaking to conflict and what people are willing to do about it, right? What people are willing to resolve it, how they're willing to resolve it, what actions, right? Because we're going to get to actions with the 6 of Wands, but what actions they are willing to take to resolve that. And so having the 8 of Swords come out immediately after the Tower card and just before 6 of Wands is just blowing my mind. But see, this card, now we have Trick from the Nevernight Chronicles. Now Trick for me for 8 of Swords, because like the traditional card of 8 of Swords, right, usually has the person, they are bound, there are swords all around them, they have a blindfold on. It's meant to imply that, you know, the only thing that is keeping them trapped, is themselves, because they've blinded themselves, right? They've blinded themselves. It's not like they are totally tied in completely. They can, like, you know, unravel the knot if they can just take off the blindfold and look at where they are, and they can navigate out of the swords. But once again, they are blindfolded and they don't know what is going on out there. And I find it very interesting that they use Trick for 8 of Swords, right? Is that in any way connected to the fact that his piece of shit grandfather is called Swordbreaker? I have no idea. But with Trick, what I always realize, right, is the fact that he was able to eventually realize or come to the realization that the scars and the tattoos, right, although they speak to his heritage, his scars also spoke to his abuse, right? And that was the reason why Trick as a character was so devastated about losing them when he's, you know, initiated into the Red Church. And it takes, you know, Mia reminding him that is more than his scars, is more than his tattoos, that they are not present does not mean that they were not things he experienced. And, you know, in a way, him being tied to that was sort of holding him back. My own personal opinion. But I also appreciated the fact that Mia also got vengeance for him. But for Trick himself, I think that For Eight of Swords, I would think that part of Trick's character arc, right, was for him to realize the fact that he's not bound by his past. The fact that he has all the strength present within him to face his past, face to face, and fight and resolve that conflict, right? And sure, it meant a killing of a certain past, but nothing not deserved. So I think that the book I would pick for Eight of Swords, which is represented by Trick here, is going to be a book with a character that is trying to find a resolution to the conflict of their past. Preferably somebody that has been abused and realizes that the first journey, the one step they need, because they do have all that swords around. Like, I like the way in which the swords are arranged behind him. Like, these are all weapons that he can use. These are all weapons that he can wield. The swords are weapons he can wield. Is intelligent, if he's intelligent enough to realize that the only thing that is blinding him from getting to from achieving that is himself, right? Is his own self-limitations, right? Self-put limitations. That's how I'm going to put it. So I'm looking for a book featuring a character that is trying to escape abuse, that is trying to fight back against abuse at home by using all the knowledge that is available to them. But for them to take that final step, they need to be aware, right? They need to be aware that what they've experienced is abuse. It is not their fault. It does not define who they are, but they also have everything they need to fight back. Next is the book I picked for the Eight of Swords, and that is, yes, An Unkindness of Ghosts by River Solomon. I have, I think, 3 River Solomon books on my shelves. I have never read any of their books. This would be the first one. I'm so excited. We already established that the Eight of Swords symbolizes this, somebody realizing that the knowledge of the power that they contain, that they can wield, right, is what is needed for them to remove the blindfolds around their eyes, see things clearly, be able to see the swords that surround them so that they can navigate their life and get what they want. In this case, yes, usually revenge in the case of Trick. And I think that Aster fits that, right? Because this book, like we said, like a lot of you all know, is based off of the antebellum South. You have humanity is on the ship, or is on a spaceship. The last of humanity is leaving Earth and, going into space. And even in those conditions, white supremacy must always white supremacy. And now they've segmented, a portion of those on the ship based off of race. They've created a racial segregation on the ship, and people who look like Aster, our lead character in this book, right, they are being brutalized and enslaved. And when she realizes that she just can sow the seeds of revolution, she's going to destroy everything. She's going to get her vengeance for the brutalization that she's personally experienced, and by extension that her people and people who look like her have experienced. And I think that it's still the brutalization, the abuse is part of Trick's story. The realization that you do have, knowledge is what you need to set yourself free. Knowledge is what you need to take, to be able to take action, right? To take action, to utilize the swords that are right behind you and get your results. And it might be kind of sneaky because, once again, the swords in this tarot deck are not in front, right? It is going to be a bit underhanded to achieve their results. And that was something that Trick had to learn. And, he learned it. I don't want to spoil it for those that have not read the story, because he did learn it by hook or crook. At least by the 3rd book, he had actually realized. But like I said, Aster is going to have to be devious to sow the seeds of a revolution. But that knowledge, that realization, that is where the swords come in. Swords do represent intellect anyway. So I think it's a perfect pick for Eight of Swords. right? I don't know if that was accurate. Like, I felt more like, I felt like, oh, you know, the tower, I felt that the I felt like the tower reading was more accurate, but I'm not sure. I'm not doubting myself. I'm just moving. The third card is the Six of Wands, right? Now, I have never read Spin the Dawn. So I'm guessing that this is Maya from Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim, and I'm just going to go off of my general beats of the story because I do know that it is a retelling, a Mulan retelling, in which case Maya wants to be a seamstress, but she lives at a time where women do not get those opportunities, just men. So she wouldn't be able to go. And when her father is summoned to court, a ill father, she goes in this place disguised as a boy, and going through the competition, falling in love, but most importantly, she's there to prove herself, right? She's there to sew beautiful, gorgeous dresses and like show her world that she's capable of doing that. And I would say that her being Six of Wands, right? Because I always think of wands as they symbolize the element of fire, right? So sometimes fire can be both destructive and also imply creativity and being innovative and being willing to just, create things. And I don't know, like when I think of the number 6, I cannot remember. I think in numerology, 6 is meant to speak to like completion, right? And which is because I'm also thinking about what Six of Wands looks like in the traditional deck, and it's usually just like somebody on a horse with a wreath around his head, or is it a garland, but basically looking like they're doing like a victory march, like they've made it to the end of the journey. But I see the garland also as a recognition, right? A recognition of the work that the person has done. And I think for her, right? Because first and foremost, the wands look like knitting needles. Am I the only one that is seeing them as knitting needles? But yes, like I said, I don't really know enough about what happens with Maya in the books because I've not read it. But based off of my little understanding and based off of the alternate deck, remember I said that for books that I have not read or characters I don't recognize, I'm going to probably fall back to the other cards and the other decks and what I can see. But the way I interpret it is that she is somebody who is willing, right, to go after her dream. She's somebody who is very creative, who is willing to do what it takes to see her dreams realized. And she gets recognition from that because she makes it to the court. So the expectation, I've not read the books, but I should assume that maybe she was semi-successful. She's meant to sew like 3 different dresses, I think, and they said it's like she can only get the materials from like the ends of the earth or something, like very difficult. And this is somebody that goes after that to make that a reality. So I would say for this, I'm going to pick a book with a character who is creative, right? Somebody who is creative and has big dreams and is willing to do whatever it takes to see those dreams realized, to see those dreams materialize. Because, they believe in their own source. They know what they're capable of accomplishing. So, yeah, that would be the book I would pick for this card. And finally, for the third card, which is Six of Wands. Now, here is where things kind of diverge a little because you see, my ass could not make a decision and I need yours help to help me finalize. But before I get there, I am considering From Twinkle with Love by Sadia Menon. Like, this has been on my shelf for like since I bought it, and it's been like, what, 5 years? It's been a while. It's been a while, but it's basically this girl who has a dream of being a filmmaker, and this entire story is told through her like writing notes to like filmmakers that she admires, that she adores, and she's telling them about her life. But basically she wants to be a filmmaker, and she gets this opportunity to create a film for a festival, an upcoming festival, and she runs with it. She recognizes that this is her chance, this is the opportunity to put herself out there, and she does it, whilst, you know, also dealing with the fact that there's the guy on there that she has a crush on. She's like, oh, it's a great way for me to meet my crush, but at the same time, like, she thinks that there's somebody else that she might be falling on. Like, it's just giving her complications, but it's complications in the middle of her chasing her dreams. Now, here is where things get a little bit complicated. Remember, I did mention that the actual book, right, the actual book that the character in the Six of Wands is from, I have not read the book yet, and it also still fits the interpretation of the card. So Spin the Dawn is another possible contender. So it's either from Twinkle with Love or Spin the Dawn. Now, I already have two sci-fi type books, so the question is, like, should the third book on my list be a fantasy or a modern contemporary? Which leads me to what I mentioned. I really need you all to help me choose. Should I read Spin the Dawn or From Twinkle with Love? Like, I do think both of them are, like, fitting for the Six of Wands card, and I would love if you all could help me, because, like, I'm torn. So drop it in the comments. Let me know, team From Twinkle with Love or team Spin the Dawn, right? So whichever of the two books gets the most votes will be my third book, my third pick. And so my fourth pick for the month, and I know before you're like, what do you mean by fourth pick, Noria? It's a 3-card poll. You've pulled 3 cards, you've picked 3 books. Yes, I know. But the fourth book is my Patreon book pick. I don't know if you're aware, but I do have a bit of like a book club going on Patreon. We've been reading books together for almost 3 years now. So every month we nominate, we vote, we pick a book, we vote. The book that gets the most votes is a book we read, and we meet every Saturday without fail. We have a reading sprint. We read the book a bit, we talk about it, we get some more reading done during the week, we talk some more about it the next Saturday, and that's what we do until we finish the book. We've actually read a pretty decent amount of books together. I mean, the Broken Earth trilogy, I read the entire trilogy together with people on Patreon. We read Sword of Kaigen together. We just finished reading Red Rising, and currently we're reading The Three-Body Problem by Xinjin Liu. And all I would just say is that that book just confirms for me why I am not a science student, because for a moment there I was like, oh my god, I want to be a science student. Like, that was a thought I had like a couple of months ago, until it just hit me. Like, when I was reading this book, and I'm like, yeah, you do not like physics, and this book is swimming in physics and math. I'm just waiting for the moment everything clicks, because Sarah, who is the only person amongst us that has read the book before, is like, trust us. Like, she's like, we should trust her. There's a big reveal coming. Everything would make sense. So I'm looking forward to it. But for now, I am beautifully and wonderfully and blissfully confused. So that is the fourth pick, The Three-Body Problem by Xinjin Liu. And I'm actually very happy about this. 4 books to read in November. I'm going to just take things chill. I'm not going to rush. It's much better than my 10 books a month I used to do. Like, I repeat, I'm recovering from a burnout. So I'm taking these blessings where I can. But yes, I'll see you in my next video, hopefully in a week, and it's going to most likely be a compiled, like my compiled video of the last 10 queer African authors you should read. So that was meant to drop in October, because October is South African Pride Month, but like, we're currently witnessing a genocide of the Palestinian people. So my things have just there's no consistency. I'm just okay. But yes, I will see you in my next video soon.